Hey, my name is Matt. I'm 28. 3 months ago, I was just a divorced gym trainer trying to rebuild my life. Then, one night after her workout, she stayed alone with me in the locker room and whispered, "Close the door." I could smell her Chanel perfume, mixing with the eucalyptus disinfectant, hear the hum of those fluorescent lights overhead, feel my heart hammering against my ribs. She was married, 44, completely out of my league, and looking at me like I was the only person who'd ever really seen her. Drop the city you're watching from in the comments and tell me, would you have said yes? I was 28, divorced, and cleaning gym equipment at midnight when everything changed. The Platinum Fitness Center wasn't much to look at after hours. Fluorescent lights humming overhead, the smell of eucalyptus disinfectant mixing with old sweat and detergent from the towel bins. But it was quiet, and quiet was what I needed back then. I'd been working there for 6 months, trying to rebuild my reputation after the divorce. My ex-wife had made sure everyone in our old neighborhood knew exactly why she left me, or her version of it anyway. So I moved across town, took a job training clients at this upscale gym where nobody knew my name or my story. Just Matt the trainer, clean slate. Most nights, I locked up alone. The wealthy clients from the suburbs liked their morning sessions, not evening ones. So when I heard the front door chime at 9:47 p.m. that Tuesday, I figured someone had forgotten their water bottle. Instead, I found Claudia Pierce. "I'm so sorry," she said, a little breathless. "I know you're closing, but Tom's working late again and the kids are at their friends' houses, and I couldn't sit in that empty house another minute." She was 44, though she looked younger in the dim gym lighting. Auburn hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing expensive athletic wear that somehow looked effortless on her. She ran her own real estate business, high-end properties for the kind of people who had money to burn. Married to Tom Pierce, who owned half the commercial development in our town. I'd been training her for 3 weeks. Professional, polite. She paid on time and never complained when I pushed her harder than she expected. "No problem," I said, setting down my cleaning spray. "Machine work or cardio tonight?" "Whatever you think. I need to move, you know?" I did know. After my divorce, the gym had become my church. The place where I could burn off anger and disappointment until I felt human again. We worked through her usual routine, leg press, lat pull-downs, core work on the mats. But something was different that night. She was quieter than usual, more focused. When she finished her last set of planks, she stayed on the mat for a moment, breathing hard. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, but her eyes told a different story. "Just thinking." "About what?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. How I used to know who I was. Before marriage, before kids, before all of this. She gestured vaguely around the gym, like it represented something bigger than just exercise equipment. I handed her a clean towel. "You're still the same person." "Am I?" She stood up, and for a moment we were standing closer than trainer and client usually did. I caught the faint scent of her perfume. Something expensive, floral, Chanel maybe. It mixed with the eucalyptus and somehow made the empty gym feel smaller. "Same time Thursday?" she asked, grabbing her water bottle. "Sure." But she didn't leave right away. Instead, she lingered by the water cooler near the front desk, making small talk about her day, while I finished wiping down the machines. Something about a difficult client who wanted to buy a house site, unseen, then changed his mind 3 times. I found myself listening more carefully than I should have. The way she talked with her hands when she got animated, the little laugh she did when she caught herself rambling, the way she unconsciously played with her wedding ring when she mentioned Tom. "I should go," she finally said. "Thanks for staying late." "Anytime." She paused at the door. "Matt." "Yeah, thanks for listening. Tom's not much of a talker these days." And then she was gone, leaving me alone with the humming fluorescent lights and the lingering scent of her perfume. The next morning, I saw her through the cafe window across the street. She was sitting alone at a corner table, stirring her coffee without drinking it. Her phone was pressed to her ear, and even from a distance, I could see the tension in her shoulders. I grabbed my usual black coffee and walked past her table on my way out, close enough to hear her end of the conversation. "I know you're busy, Tom. I'm just saying it would be nice if you made it home before the kids went to bed once in a while." "No, I'm not being dramatic." "Fine, whatever." She hung up and sat there for a moment, staring at her phone. When she looked up and saw me watching, her cheeks flushed pink. "Small town," she said with a forced smile. "Too small sometimes." I wanted to ask if she was okay, but we weren't friends. I was her trainer. She was a client, married, wealthy, out of my league in every way that mattered. That evening, she showed up at the gym again, not for a scheduled session, just because she needed somewhere to go. "Is this weird?" she asked, "coming here 2 nights in a row?" "People come here to work things out," I said. "Nothing weird about that." We did stretches in the empty gym, the kind of slow, methodical work that gives you time to talk. She asked about my divorce, how long ago, whether it was amicable, if I missed being married. "Sometimes," I admitted. "I miss having someone to come home to, but I don't miss walking on eggshells." Eggshells? Trying to guess what mood she'd be in, whether something I said would set her off, whether she was happy or just pretending to be. Claudia nodded like she understood. "Tom thinks I'm dramatic when I say I'm lonely. He says I have everything I need: nice house, good kids, successful business. Like loneliness is just ingratitude in disguise." She was lying on the stretching mat, one leg extended, reaching for her toes. Her wedding ring caught the overhead light, throwing tiny sparkles across the rubber floor. "Maybe some people just don't get it," I said. "Do you ever feel invisible? Like you could disappear and it would take people a week to notice?" I was adjusting the resistance on a cable machine, but her question made me stop. "Yeah, I do." "Really?" After the divorce, I felt like everyone was just polite to me, like I was this broken thing they had to be careful around. No one saw me anymore, just saw what happened to me. She sat up, hugging her knees. "I've been married for 18 years, and sometimes I think Tom sees me less clearly now than he did on our first date." "What did he see then?" "Someone worth chasing, I guess." The conversation felt dangerous, not because anything inappropriate was happening, but because it was real in a way that trainer-client relationships weren't supposed to be. I found myself watching the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she got thoughtful, the way she bit her lower lip when she was deciding whether to say something. And I noticed her watching me too. When I demonstrated an exercise, when I laughed at something she said, when I pushed my sleeves up and she caught sight of the tattoo on my forearm, a simple compass rose I'd gotten after my divorce, when I was trying to figure out which direction to go next. "What does it mean?" she asked, nodding toward my arm. "That I'm lost most of the time, but still looking for true north." She smiled. A real smile this time, not the polite one she wore for small talk. I like that. We were interrupted by the sound of a car door slamming outside. Through the window, I could see Tom Pierce walking toward the entrance, his face set in the businessman mode. "He's picking me up," Claudia said quickly, grabbing her things. "We're supposed to have dinner." Tom walked in without knocking, barely acknowledging me. Ready? Almost. Claudia slung her gym bag over her shoulder. Tom, you remember Matt, my trainer? Right. How are things going with her workouts? She's doing great, I said. Very dedicated. Tom's eyes flicked between us, and I caught something in his expression. Not quite suspicion, but awareness, like he was filing away details for later consideration. Good. We appreciate you keeping the gym open late for her. I know she likes her evening sessions. He paused. Just make sure you're not bending too many rules. I wouldn't want Sherry to think the sponsorship comes with special privileges. Tom's company had sponsored the gym's renovation the year before. His name was on a plaque by the front door, and everyone knew he had Sherry's ear when it came to policy decisions. Of course not, I said. After they left, I finished cleaning up, but the conversation stuck with me. Tom's polite warning, the way Claudia had gone quiet when he mentioned the sponsorship, the way she'd looked back at me through the window as they drove away. That night, at 11:23 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you for today. I needed that. Claudia. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. Anytime. The next evening, Claudia showed up with her 12-year-old son, Max. He was a blur of energy and basketball shorts, racing around the gym while she tried to get him to sit still. I'm so sorry, she said, chasing after him as he tested every piece of equipment. The babysitter cancelled last minute, and Tom's in Chicago until tomorrow. It's fine, I said, and meant it. Max reminded me of myself at that age, all restless energy and curiosity. I showed him how to use the rowing machine safely, taught him proper push-up form, let him count reps while his mum did her workout. Mum, Matt's cool, Max announced when they were getting ready to leave. Can he teach me how to box? We'll see, Claudia said, but she was smiling. Thank Matt for being so patient. Thanks, Matt. Max ran ahead to the car, leaving us alone by the front desk. He likes you, Claudia said. He's a good kid. He doesn't warm up to people easily. His dad's always busy, and most of Tom's friends treat him like a prop at company events. It's nice to see him actually excited about hanging out with an adult. She hesitated at the door again, the way she had been doing lately, like there was something else she wanted to say but couldn't find the words. Claudia. Yeah. For what it's worth, I don't think you're invisible. Her smile was soft and a little sad. That's good to know. The next day, Sherry pulled me aside during lunch. She was in her 50s, tough as nails, and had built platinum fitness from nothing. She didn't tolerate drama or unprofessionalism. Matt, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. About what? About boundaries, client relationships, keeping things appropriate. Did someone complain? Not exactly, but people talk. Greg mentioned seeing you and Mrs. Pierce here pretty late a couple times, and Tom Pierce is not someone we want to upset. Greg was a regular who worked out every morning at 6 a.m. sharp, former military, retired accountant, and the biggest gossip in a 5-mile radius. He knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. Claudia's sessions sometimes run late, I said. She pays for the time. I'm not saying you've done anything wrong. I'm saying be careful. Tom Pierce's sponsorship keeps the lights on here. His wife is off limits for anything that isn't strictly professional. Are we clear? Crystal. But as Sherry walked away, I felt something settle in my chest. The weight of being watched, of having to measure every conversation, every glance, every moment of connection. That evening, Claudia came in for her regular session. We barely made eye contact. I kept our conversations to form corrections and rep counts. When she tried to ask about my weekend plans, I deflected with questions about her workout goals. She caught on quickly. By the end of the session, the easy warmth between us had cooled to something polite and distant. "Is everything okay?" she asked as she gathered her things. "Yeah, just trying to keep things professional." Something flickered across her face. Understanding, maybe, or disappointment. "Right, of course." She left without lingering by the water cooler. No small talk, no lingering glances. Just a polite goodbye and the sound of her car pulling out of the parking lot. I told myself it was better this way, safer for both of us. But as I locked up that night, the gym felt emptier than it had in weeks. 3 days passed. Claudia kept her appointments, did her workouts, and left without conversation. Professional, appropriate, exactly what Sherry had asked for. It was killing me. On Friday, she broke first. After her session, instead of leaving immediately, she helped me stack weight plates and organize resistance bands. Small talk about the weather turned into conversation about weekend plans, which turned into her asking if I wanted to grab coffee after I finished closing up. "I know a place that stays open late," she said. "Quiet, good coffee. No one from the gym crowd goes there." I should have said no, should have cited professional boundaries and conflict of interest and all the logical reasons why a trainer shouldn't have coffee with a married client at 11 p.m. Instead, I said, "Give me 10 minutes to lock up." The cafe was exactly as she described: dim lighting, mismatched furniture, jazz playing softly in the background. The kind of place where conversations stayed private. We talked about everything except the elephant in the room, her real estate business, my plans to maybe open my own training studio someday, books we'd read, places we wanted to travel. The conversation flowed like we'd known each other for years instead of weeks. "I never do this," she said, stirring sugar into a second cup of coffee. "Have coffee. Stay out late talking to—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Your trainer." "A friend." The word hung between us, loaded with meaning. Because that's what we were becoming, despite all the reasons we shouldn't. Friends. Maybe more than friends, though neither of us was ready to name it yet. As we walked back to our cars, the night air cool and quiet around us, I almost reached for her hand. The impulse was so strong I had to shove my hands in my pockets to stop myself. "Thank you," she said when we reached her BMW. "I haven't felt this normal in a long time." "What do you mean?" "Like myself, not Tom's wife or Max and Jenna's mom or the woman who sells million-dollar houses. Just me." She unlocked her car, but didn't. "Get in." "Sometimes I wish you'd forget your manners." The words were soft, barely audible over the distant sound of traffic, but I heard them, felt them settle somewhere deep in my chest. "Claudia." "I know." She got in her car quickly, like she was afraid of what else she might say. "See you Monday." I watched her drive away, her taillights disappearing around the corner, and I knew that everything had just changed between us, even if we weren't ready to admit it yet. I didn't sleep that night. Her words kept echoing. "Sometimes I wish you'd forget your manners." I replayed every moment of our coffee date, if that's what it was. The way she'd laughed when I told her about Max trying to deadlift twice his body weight. How she'd gone quiet when I mentioned feeling invisible after my divorce. The careful distance she'd kept between us in the booth, like she didn't trust herself to sit closer. By Monday, I'd convinced myself to keep things professional again. But when Claudia walked into the gym that evening, wearing a soft blue sweater that made her eyes look impossibly green, my resolve cracked. "How was your weekend?" I asked, adjusting the incline on the treadmill. "Lonely," she said, then caught herself. "I mean quiet. Tom was in meetings all day Saturday, and the kids were at friends' houses." What did you do? Sat in my kitchen drinking wine and thinking about Friday night. The admission hung between us as she started her warm-up. I pretended to check her form, but really, I was watching the way she moved, confident and graceful, like she belonged in her own skin when no one else was watching. Good thoughts? I asked. She slowed to a walk, turning to look at me. Dangerous thoughts. That's when I heard the footsteps behind us. Greg walked in, gym bag slung over his shoulder, that knowing smile already spreading across his face. Well, well, the night shift again. He dropped his bag by the free weights. You two are here more than I am, and I practically live at this place. Just finishing up, Claudia said, stepping off the treadmill. No rush on my account. I like having company. Greg started his stretching routine, but his eyes stayed on us. Must be nice having such a dedicated trainer, Mrs. Pierce. Matt's very professional, Claudia replied, but I caught the slight edge in her voice. Oh, I'm sure he is. Professional as they come. Greg's grin widened. Tom know how late these sessions run. My husband trusts me, Claudia said quietly. Course he does. Lucky man, having a wife so committed to fitness. The conversation felt like walking through a minefield. Every word loaded with subtext, every pause pregnant with meaning. I finished Claudia's session quickly, keeping everything strictly business until Greg moved to the other side of the gym. I should go, Claudia said, gathering her things. Probably a good idea. But neither of us moved. We stood there in the space between the rowing machines and the exit, close enough that I could smell her perfume again, close enough to see the conflict in her eyes. Greg's going to talk, she said. Let him. There's nothing to talk about. Isn't there? The question hit like a punch to the chest, because there was something to talk about, wasn't there? The coffee date, the late-night texts, the way we looked at each other when we thought no one was watching. Claudia, I know we can't. I know all the reasons why this is impossible. She stepped closer, and I caught my breath. But I can't stop thinking about you. Before I could respond, we heard Greg's footsteps coming back toward us. Claudia stepped away quickly, grabbing her water bottle like nothing had happened. Night, folks, Greg called out cheerfully. Don't work too hard. After he left, the gym felt charged with everything we couldn't say. Claudia's confession hung in the air like smoke. I should lock up, I said. Right. She headed for the door, then stopped. Matt, that thing I said, I shouldn't have. You didn't say anything. She nodded, understanding. See you Wednesday. But Wednesday came and went without her. Thursday too. On Friday, I texted her. Everything okay? She responded an hour later. Just busy with work. Rain check on this week's sessions. I wanted to call her, wanted to drive to her office and demand to know if she was avoiding me because of what she'd said or what I hadn't said back. Instead, I threw myself into work, training other clients with an intensity that left them exhausted and me still restless. The weekend dragged. I cleaned my apartment twice, went for long runs that didn't tire me out, and generally acted like a lovesick teenager instead of a grown man who knew better. Monday evening, I was reorganizing the weight room when Tom Pierce walked in, alone. Matt, right, Claudia's trainer. That's right. How can I help you? Actually, I wanted to thank you. Claudia's been happier lately, more energetic. Whatever you're doing is working. There was something in his tone that made my shoulders tense. He was studying me like a potential business investment, weighing risks and benefits. She's a dedicated client. She is that. Tom picked up a 20-pound dumbbell, testing its weight. Dedicated to lots of things. Her family, her work, her commitments. The emphasis on that last word wasn't subtle. I appreciate you keeping the gym open late for her. I know it's above and beyond. He set the weight down. Just want to make sure we're all clear on boundaries. Professional boundaries. Of course. Good. Because Claudia can be trusting. Sometimes too trusting. And I'd hate for anyone to take advantage of that. After he left, I sat in the empty gym for 20 minutes, staring at my phone. Tom's message had been crystal clear. Stay away from my wife, or there would be consequences. The smart thing would have been to listen, to keep things strictly professional when Claudia eventually came back, to stop texting, stop thinking about her, stop caring whether she was happy or lonely or thinking about me at all. Instead, I found myself driving past her neighborhood that night. Not to her house, I wasn't that far gone, but through the tree-lined streets where she lived, past the manicured lawns and expensive cars and houses that cost more than I'd make in 5 years. Her world, not mine. I was heading home when I saw her car parked outside a small restaurant downtown. Through the window, I could see her sitting across from another woman, blonde, well-dressed, talking animatedly while Claudia nodded and smiled at appropriate moments. Even from a distance, I could tell she wasn't really listening. Her fingers played with her napkin, and every few minutes she'd glance toward the window like she was looking for escape routes. I should have driven away, should have respected her privacy and her marriage and all the lines that separated her world from mine. Instead, I parked and went into the restaurant. Matt, she looked genuinely surprised when I appeared at her table. What are you doing here? Meeting someone for dinner. Didn't expect to see you. The lie came easily. Sorry to interrupt. Oh, don't apologize. I'm Janet Hoffman. The blonde woman extended her hand. Claudia and I serve on the hospital board together. Matt's my trainer, Claudia explained. How wonderful. Claudia's been raving about how much better she feels since starting at your gym. Janet's smile was polite but assessing. Though I have to say, you're younger than I expected. Janet. Claudia's voice carried a warning. What? I'm just saying, when you described your trainer, I pictured someone older, more grandfatherly. The awkwardness stretched until I excused myself, claiming my dinner companion was waiting. But as I walked away, I heard Janet's voice drop to a conspiratorial whisper. Claudia Pierce. That man is gorgeous. Are you sure it's wise spending so much time alone with him? I didn't hear Claudia's response. Didn't want to. The next evening, she came back to the gym. We worked through her routine in careful silence, both of us hyper-aware of every accidental touch, every shared glance. Janet's right, you know, she said as I spotted her on the bench press. About what? You being younger than she expected. Claudia finished her set and sat up, meeting my eyes. Sometimes I forget there's 13 years between us. Does it matter? It should. But does it? She didn't answer. Instead, she asked about my plans for the weekend, and we fell back into the easy conversation that felt dangerous and necessary all at once. By closing time, we were the only ones left. Claudia helped me clean up, both of us moving around each other in the small space with practiced familiarity. When she handed me a stack of towels, our fingers brushed. Neither of us pulled away. I missed this, she said softly. Training, talking to you, being around someone who sees me. We were standing by the laundry bin, close enough that I could count the flecks of gold in her green eyes, close enough to notice that her hands were shaking slightly. Claudia, I know I shouldn't feel this way. I know it's wrong and complicated and impossible. Her voice was barely above a whisper. But when I'm with you, I remember who I used to be, who I still am, underneath everything else. Who are you? Someone who laughs too loud at bad jokes, who used to drive with the windows down and music turned up, who believed in taking chances. She stepped closer. Who wanted things just because they made her happy, not because they made sense. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure she could hear it. What do you want now? Instead of answering with words, she reached up and touched the compass tattoo on my forearm, tracing its outline with her fingertip. The touch was feather light, but it burned through me like electricity. I want to know what would happen if we stopped being careful. That's when we heard the keys jangling outside. Claudia jerked her hand away, stepping back so quickly she nearly stumbled. A moment later, Greg pushed through the door, gym bag in hand. "Forgot my water bottle," he announced cheerfully. "Hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Just finishing up," I managed, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Claudia was already gathering her things, not meeting anyone's eyes. "I should go. Tom's expecting me." She practically ran for the exit, leaving me alone with Greg and the echo of her words. I want to know what would happen if we stopped being careful. Greg watched her leave through the window, then turned to me with that knowing smile I'd come to dread. "You two good?" he asked. "Fine." "Good, because that lady's got danger written all over her." He found his water bottle and headed for the door. "Pretty as a picture, but married women are nothing but trouble, Matt. Trust me on that one." After he left, I stood in the empty gym, breathing hard, like I'd just finished a marathon. Claudia's perfume still lingered in the air. I could still feel the ghost of her touch on my arm. And I knew that Greg was right. She was dangerous. Not because she was manipulative or cruel, but because she made me want things I couldn't have. Made me believe in possibilities that didn't exist in the real world. But as I locked up and headed home, I couldn't stop thinking about her question. What would happen if we stopped being careful? I was beginning to think I was ready to find out. The next few days passed in a haze of tension and anticipation. Claudia's regular sessions, but with an undercurrent of electricity that made every interaction feel loaded. We were both waiting for something to happen, though neither of us would admit what. Thursday evening, she stayed after her workout to help me organize the equipment room. It was cramped back there, barely enough space for two people to move around without bumping into each other, which we did, frequently. "Sorry," she'd murmur each time her shoulder brushed mine, or when she had to squeeze past me to reach the resistance bands, or when we both reached for the same yoga mat and our hands collided. By the time we finished, the air between us was thick enough to cut with a knife. "That's the last of it," I said, stepping back to survey our work. But Claudia didn't move toward the door. Instead, she leaned against the wall, looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Something between fear and determination. "Matt." "Yeah." "Close the door." The words hit me like a physical blow. Everything we'd been building toward, all the tension and longing and careful boundaries crystallized into this single request. "Claudia, please." My hand was already moving toward the door handle when I heard footsteps in the main gym area. Heavy, unfamiliar footsteps that definitely weren't Greg's. We both froze, listening. A man's voice called out, "Hello? Anyone here?" Door was unlocked. I cracked the equipment room door and peered out. A security guard stood in the main area, flashlight in hand, looking around suspiciously. "We're back here," I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. "Just finishing up some inventory." "Oh, sorry to bother you. Saw the lights on, wanted to make sure everything was secure." "All good. We'll be out in a few minutes." After the guard left, Claudia and I stood in the small room, not looking at each other. The moment was broken, the spell lifted by reality crashing back in. "I should go," she said quietly. "Probably." But as she reached for the door handle, she paused. That thing I said about closing the door, you didn't say anything. She nodded, but her eyes told a different story. They told me that she'd meant every word, and that next time, because we both knew there would be a next time, she might not let interruptions stop her.